The Effective Listening Skills program is brought to you by the Office of Formation and Discipleship, Archdiocese of Atlanta. Welcome to the program on effective listening. My name is Bill Clark. I will be your presenter for the program. If you have any questions or desire additional information, you can reach me on my direct line at 404-920-7635 or by email at wclark@archatl.com. Let's open our program with a prayer. Teach me to listen, O God, to those nearest me, my family, my friends, my co-workers. Help me to be aware that no matter what words I hear, the message is, accept the person I am. Listen to me. Teach me to listen, my caring God, to those far from me, the whisper of the hopeless, the plea of the forgotten, the cry of the anguished. Teach me to listen, O Blessed Mother, to myself. Help me to be less afraid to trust the voice inside, in the deepest part of me. Teach me to listen, Holy Spirit, for your voice, in busyness and in boredom, in certainty and doubt, in noise and in silence. Teach me, Lord, to listen. Amen. Let's review what we will discuss in this program. First, what is effective listening? Next, listening versus hearing. Third, whole body listening. Next, signs of ineffective listening. Next, 10 principles of effective listening. Then, active listening, followed by verbal and nonverbal signals. And lastly, a listening exercise. Why do we need to learn effective listening? Well, very few of us know how to listen effectively. It is not an instinctive capability. We are wired to talk, not to listen. We always prefer to be speaking rather than listening. We have to learn how to listen more effectively. It's a learning process that we must go through to learn this capability. What is effective listening? Effective listening is actively, the key word is actively, absorbing what we hear by showing that we are listening and interested, by providing feedback to the speaker. So, effective listeners let speakers know they are being heard and understood. Listening is not the same as hearing. Hearing is being aware of sounds around you, noises, words, music. Listening puts meaning into what is said, how it is said. It requires that we hear both verbal and nonverbal messages. Listening means giving our attention. This quote summarizes that point. The most basic and powerful way to connect to another person is to listen. Just listen. Perhaps the most important thing we ever give each other is our attention. That's by Rachel Naomi Raymond. Now let's talk about listening and communication. 70% of our time each day we are involved in communicating. 30% when we are not communicating. So 70% of our time we are involved in some way in communicating, either listening or speaking. Of that 70%, 45% of that is spent listening, 30% speaking, 16% reading, and 9% writing. You would think that when we need to spend 45% of our time listening, that we would be pretty good at it, but unfortunately we're not. If we are wired to talk, but spend 45% of our day listening, the reason that we're not really good at it is because we are not actively listening. We are hearing but not listening. We must practice whole body listening. Now, what do we mean by whole body listening? Well, a good listener hears at three levels: what is being said, what is unsaid, and what the body language is saying to us from the other person. Examples: someone says they are happy, but they look like this. Someone says they are listening, but not paying attention. A good listener uses more than just ears to truly listen to what is being said. Now let's review some signs of ineffective listening, or those things that we do or the other person does that lets us know that we are truly not listening. For instance, not looking you in the eye, or they continue to work on papers, their computer, or cell phone. They interrupt you in mid-sentence. They turn and walk away. They slouch or are in a reclining posture. They have a preoccupation with music or other conversations around them. They're fidgeting, doodling, looking at their watch, yawning, closing their eyes, staring at the ceiling, etc. They have inappropriate facial expressions. They have no head nods that lets you know that what you are saying is heard and understood. They appear to be more interested in talking than listening. These are some of the many signs of ineffective listening that we're all guilty of. Why are we better talkers than listeners? Well, in the essence, our thinking speed, our brain speed, is faster than our speaking speed, or how fast our mouth can talk. We speak at around 125 words per minute, but we can comprehend about 400 words per minute. So we're only using 30% of our mental capacity. As a result, our minds tend to wander when they're not focused totally on listening. It's not a matter of multitasking. It's really our failure to listen actively. Now, let's review 10 principles of effective listening. These are things that we all need to learn how to do better so that we can become more effective listeners. Number 1, stop talking. Don't talk, listen. Don't interrupt. Don't talk over them. Don't finish sentences for someone. The quote by Mark Twain: if we were supposed to talk more than we listen, we would have two tongues and one ear. So the first important principle is stop talking, start listening. Principle number 2, prepare yourself to listen. Relax. Focus on the speaker. Put other things out of your mind. What you're going to have for lunch, what time do you need to leave, is it going to rain, etc., etc. Concentrate totally on what is being said. Principle number 3, put the speaker at ease. Help the speaker to feel free to speak by focusing on them, nodding to encourage them to continue, maintaining eye contact without staring. In other words, be receptive to the person speaking and let them know that you are totally committed to listening. Principle number 4, remove distractions. Don't doodle, shuffle papers, look out the window, pick your nose, read the paper, clip your fingernails, or whatever else you may be inclined to do. Pay attention. Do look interested. Let the other person know that you're really listening to them and you really care about what they have to say. Principle number 5, empathize, not emphasize. Empathy amounts to putting yourself on the other side of the desk or in the other person's shoes. Understand the other person's point of view. Let go of preconceived ideas. Wait before countering a comment. Pay attention to what they're saying, not about how you're going to respond. Keep an open mind, and most importantly, focus, focus, focus on what is being said. Principle number 6, be patient. Let the speaker continue at their speed. A pause by the speaker does not necessarily mean that the speaker has finished. They may simply be reformulating their thoughts. Give them time to formulate what to say and how to say it, and never interrupt or finish a sentence for someone. Principle number 7, avoid prejudice for both the speaker or the content that they're speaking about. Don't judge what is being said until you hear it all. Try to disregard a person's habits or mannerisms. Everybody has a different way of speaking. Some are nervous or shy. Some have accents. Some have weird body movements or tics. Some like to walk when they talk. Others like to sit still. Focus on what is being said and try to ignore the styles of delivery of the other person. Principle number 8, listen to the tone of the other person's voice. The volume and tone adds depth and dimension. For instance, when somebody says, please listen to me, is a whole lot different than someone saying, please listen to me. Be attentive to understand what the speaker is emphasizing. Principle number 9, listen to the message, not just the words. What is a person really trying to say? Try to get the whole picture. For instance, when you're speaking to a teenager and they're beating around the bush, they're trying to basically say they want to borrow the car this weekend, but they flower it up in such a way that it takes a while for you to clearly understand what they're getting at. So get the whole picture before you say yes or no. Link together pieces to reveal what the true hidden message actually is. The last principle, number 10, watch for nonverbal communication. The gestures, facial expressions, eye movements, all of this is body language, which is saying something that may be the same as or perhaps different than the words that are coming out the person's mouth. So you have to listen with your ears and your eyes. Try to pick up the additional information being transmitted by their bodies. Now it's time to kick it up a notch. If you've mastered the 10 principles of effective listeners, you can enhance your listening skills by engaging in active listening. Let me describe active listening. Active listening is sort of like listening plus, or listening to the next degree, in which we try to listen with all of our senses. We try to use intuition and feeling. Intuition tends to be stronger in females than males. It's an ability to sense, to feel, to be intuitive about the other person's feelings. Try to focus full, total attention on the speaker. Intensify the interpretation of verbal and nonverbal signs. In other words, pick these signs up quickly, interpret them to help you understand what they mean by what they're saying, and provide positive reinforcement and feedback to the speaker to make it easier for them to talk. We become active listeners by picking up and using both verbal and nonverbal signals that the speaker is sending out. Verbal signals involve what we hear, the words. Nonverbal signals are how the speaker says something. In other words, what their whole body is saying to you as they are speaking. If you want to be an effective listener, you have to master some verbal signals. The first is positive reinforcement, in which you give words of encouragement to the speaker by at the appropriate time saying things like, well, that makes sense, or that's a good point you just made. A second tip is to remember. Recall a few key points of what they've said and repeat it back to them. Or ask questions. Ask questions that are relevant to what the speaker is saying. Or take time to reflect. Sit pensively, think about it, then repeat back what the speaker has said, which allows the speaker to know that you have actually heard and understood what they've said. Or try to clarify what they're saying by asking relevant questions back to them. Summarize. Reiterate main points of what they said. By providing these verbal signals or responses back to the speaker, you are providing them with feedback, with some help in making the points that they're trying to get across to you. Now let's cover some nonverbal signals, or things that you can do to further help the speaker. First, smile. Be happy when appropriate. Make eye contact, but you need to gauge how much eye contact is desirable and appropriate for the nature of the conversation. Posture. Lean forward. Tilt your head or rest your head on a hand, which provides the speaker with the understanding that you are truly trying to listen. Mirroring. Try to mirror facial expressions, whether happy or sad. When they're smiling, you smile. When they are not happy, you frown with them. Distractions. Do not let eyes or hands or actions distract you from listening, or do not use your movements to distract the other person. Now let's contemplate a few good quotes about listening. First, from Stephen Covey, the author of 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Most people do not listen with the intent to understand. They listen with the intent to reply. Here's one from John Wayne. You're short on ears and long on mouth. And lastly, from Alfred Brendel, the word listen contains the same letters as the word silent. One last premier quote. We should all know this, that listening, not talking, is the gifted and great role and the imaginative role. So try listening. Listen to your wife, your husband, your father, your mother, your children, your friends, to those who love you and those who don't, to those who bore you, to your enemies. It will work a small miracle and perhaps a great one. From Brenda Ullin, book on the fine art of listening. Okay, now we're going to do a listening exercise and have some fun. This is called the bus driver exercise. Okay? Pay attention. You can take notes if you want, but the important thing is to listen. Listen very strongly. Here's a situation. You are the bus driver. At the first stop, 3 people got on the bus. One of them was wearing a red hat. At stop 2, 4 people got on and 1 got off. At stop 3, 2 people got on. One person was carrying a bag and the other person with the red hat got off. At stop 4, 1 person got on, 2 got off, but not the one carrying the bag. At stop 5, 2 nuns got on the bus, followed by 3 clowns. Okay, so the question is this. The question is, what is the bus driver's age? Think about it. Now, if you were actively listening, you'll recall in the instructions I said, pay attention. You can take notes if you like. Let's start. You are the bus driver. You. So, the age of the bus driver is your age. That's an exercise in active listening. Now let's combine your listening skills with your problem-solving capabilities by going over a few riddles. The first riddle. Carl wins race after race. He's the fastest runner, yet he gets no trophy. Why is that? Carl is a horse. Riddle 2. There's a man who guesses the score of every football game before kickoff, and he's always right. How can he do this? Before the game starts, the score is always 0-0. Number 3. A girl who was just learning to drive went down a one-way street in the wrong direction, but didn't break the law. How come? She was walking. Number 4. A profoundly deaf person heads down to the hardware store to buy a saw. How does he let the assistant know that he wants to buy a saw? He says, "Hello, I'd like to buy a saw, please." The man is deaf, but he can still talk. Number 5, a cat jumped out the window of a 30-story building and lived. How could that be? He jumped from the ground floor window. We've just demonstrated your ability to listen properly and to solve riddles. Hope you enjoyed the exercise. Now let's summarize what we've covered in this program. Effective listening is more than hearing. 45% of our time is spent hearing, but not always listening. Whole body listening involves what is said, what is unsaid, and what the body is saying. Beware of the signs of ineffective listening. Remember the 10 principles of effective listening. Use active listening. Engage all senses, verbal and nonverbal signals. And practice the golden rule of listening. By way of review, the 10 principles of effective listening are: stop talking, prepare to listen, put the speaker at ease, remove distractions, empathize, be patient, avoid prejudice, listen to tone and volume, listen to the message, not just the words, and watch for the nonverbal signals. Let me emphasize the golden rule of listening. Be the kind of listener you want others to be when you are talking. There it is, the golden rule. Be the kind of listener you want others to be when you are talking. Here is a take-home idea, something you can take home with you, you can remember and start practicing right away. You've heard a lot in a hurry. What can you take home and remember tomorrow? 2 things. Number 1, curb your desire to talk. And number 2, concentrate hard on listening. So curb your desire to talk and concentrate hard on listening, and you will become an instant better listener. If you have any questions or would like additional information, you may contact me, Bill Clark, at the Office of Formation and Discipleship. My direct line is 404-920-7635, or by email wclark@archatl.com. Thank you very much for your time and attention, and may God bless you.